from Wood TV, this is a special presentation. West Michigan's hidden history, honoring Black history.
Good evening, everyone. Glad you're here. Thanks for joining us for this special broadcast. I'm Donovan Long. We will celebrate African Americans who have made a profound impact on West Michigan. We'll focus on the first African American mayor of Grand Rapids, Reverend Lyman Parks. We'll head to our state's capital to talk equal representation with Michigan's Lieutenant Governor, first Black Lieutenant Governor, Garland Gilchrist.
It's an important responsibility. I want to be a good steward of the opportunity.
And we'll also share stories of trailblazers like Sam Dunlap. He's Western Michigan University's first Black student athlete. And we'll take you inside several places in West Michigan that honor the rich history of Black culture. But we begin the evening with Grand Rapids' first and only Black mayor. Lyman Parks was elected to the city commission just months after the race riots of 1967. He made his way to the mayor's office during one of the most tumultuous times in American history. Emily Leonard looks at the important legacy he created.
I think he made it permissible for a person from the clergy to be a city commissioner or to be involved in politics.
Before he was Mayor Parks, he was Reverend Parks of First Community AME Church on James Avenue Southeast. Betty and Dan Gross have been members of the church for decades. Betty recalls Reverend Parks telling her, in order to be elected to anything in Grand Rapids, you had to know how to talk to everyone, work with everyone equally.
And he was very adamant about that. I have to meet with them, just as I meet with you, and we have to meet together. It's one of the things he shared while he was running for the office.
The late 1960s were a time when the civil rights movement and political unrest rippled across the country. Grand Rapids was no different. Still, Parks was able to run for city commission and win.
Religious attributes played well for Parks, and people thought that having a Black city commissioner would be some kind of reconciling of race relations.
Dr. Randall Jelks wrote the book African Americans in the Furniture City: The Struggle for Civil Rights in Grand Rapids.
But he won with the coalition because Parks tended to be a little more conservative than say some of the young people out who were espousing such rhetoric as Black power.
From commissioner to mayor, Parks took over the role after the resignation of another mayor and then was elected, beating 10 other candidates. It was Parks who convinced Richard DeVos to invest in the old Pantland Hotel. A decade later, the Amway Grand Hotel started a wave of growth and change in downtown Grand Rapids. Today, Parks' statue stands outside Grand Rapids City Hall, a pioneer having the courage to run for public office and the heart to lead a congregation and a city.
We need to learn how to help people, become better people, and be better ourselves.
Well, from one of our beloved Black leaders to a man currently breaking barriers, Garland Gilchrist. He's our state's first Black lieutenant governor. Rick Albin talked with him about his role in state history.
To support the Constitution.
January 1st, 2019.
And the Constitution.
Garland Gilchrist II made history.
And that I will faithfully discharge.
The duties of.
The duties of.
The office of Lieutenant Governor.
The office of Lieutenant Governor.
According to the best of my ability.
According to the best of my ability.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
He became the first African American to become the Lieutenant Governor in the state of Michigan. The first African American to be president of the Senate.
And by the way, last year, Garland became the first African American lieutenant governor in our state's history to sign a bill into law.
In a position like this, I know that kind of everything that I do is a first.
At 37 years old, the Detroit native takes his historic accomplishment in stride, while always keeping in mind the unique responsibilities that go along with being a role model in a position of leadership.
But I think it's about making leadership actually, real, that you can actually go and you can shake hands, that person will come and listen to you. And I think that's part of being a role model as a public servant.
So as the lieutenant governor continues with FIRST, I ask him how those milestones might affect future generations. What, if you had to guess, will the impact on Garland III's generation be by having you breaking ground in the position of lieutenant governor?
Well, I think that children in my children's generation will see it as normal for leadership to be as diverse as the state. They will see it as not even interesting that we will have people who look like them in elected office or in appointed office. And so I actually hope that this anomaly wears off very quickly.
President recognizes...
Maybe, but the first just keep on coming. Gilchrist became perhaps the first ever lieutenant governor to join in support of a resolution in the Senate last week when he added his name to the motion to recognize February as Black History Month in Michigan.
Now to the gridiron, where a man known as the Black Ghost is hailed as the first African-American football player at Western Michigan University. He integrated the field more than a century ago, breaking racial barriers decades before Jackie Robinson became a national icon. Kyle Mitchell introduces us to Sam Dunlap.
Western Michigan University is preserving the legacy of Sam Dunlap, who first played football here in 1915. WMU even saved the helmet he wore along with his padding. With the nickname the Black Ghost, Sam Dunlap's speed and talents to this day are the envy of many athletes.
Just an outstanding football player.
Sharon Carlson runs the Zhang Legacy Collection Center at Western Michigan University, trying to preserve the history of the legendary player.
Well, he definitely was a pioneer, and he was an outstanding athlete. He had been an outstanding athlete in high school. He originally was born in Chicago, but his family moved to Benton Harbor.
But life wasn't so easy once he was recruited to play for the Broncos. Some teams like the Culver Military Academy refused to play against a black player.
I think, the team was consulted, and Sam encouraged them, to go ahead and play without him. Western won.
Sam refused to let racism keep him from the sport he loved. He played halfback and was a punter, spending 4 seasons on the team.
He played in the 1915, 1916, and 1917 season. His time in college was interrupted briefly. He served in World War I, and then he returned in 1919.
The Zhang Legacy Collection Center is preserving Sam's history, saving articles and photographs.
Interestingly enough, we have actually Sam's pants to one of his football uniforms, his shoulder pads, and a helmet, and that's kind of unusual.
Sam was inducted into Western's inaugural Hall of Fame in 1973, more than a decade after his death, never getting to experience the recognition himself.
I still kind of considered it a bittersweet story, because there is the accomplishments on the field, and he had his time at Western, but the racism that permeated society, I think made it very difficult for him.
Well, African-American icons are celebrated across Grand Rapids through a series of statues. Next, we're talking to the man who spearheaded the effort to memorialize Rosa Parks for decades to come. Welcome back, everyone, as we continue celebrating Black History Month. The statue of Rosa Parks in downtown Grand Rapids was the first statue of a person of color in the city when it was installed a decade ago. Barton Dieter sat down with the man who made history in this city.
It's a united of folks of color that we're moving forward. We stand up for Rosa, and we're moving forward.
Armand Robinson was born in Detroit in 1929 and came to Grand Rapids to work for Lear Corporation 50 years ago. He then retired from Herman Miller. As a 26-year-old in 1955, he was acutely aware of the impact of Parks' quiet protest in Montgomery, Alabama, when she refused to give up her bus seat to a white passenger. Always civic-minded, Robinson was appointed to the city's Community Relations Board.
And I approached, initiated, and requested to start action to put the lady there where she is.
The Rosa Parks Circle name had been there for 9 years, but there was nothing to say who Rosa Parks was. The committee raised $370,000 to erect and maintain the monument from some of the most prominent members of Grand Rapids business and society.
And I remain very proud of having initiated the idea and gotten the support from so many points.
Ed Dwight, America's first black astronaut, designed the statue, the first statue of a person of color in Grand Rapids.
Rosa Parks was famous for her seated resistance. You notice that she's standing. And our premise was, as stated in that book, we stand up for Rosa Parks. We stand up for what? Well, it's more than diversity.
For more than 9 years, Grand Rapids was the only statue of Rosa Parks where she was standing, until December, when another statue was unveiled in Montgomery, Alabama. Robinson says the message of Rosa Parks is needed now more than ever.
Environment that's so heavily on us at this time, more so than I've seen any time in my 90 years, the racism that's very prevalent.
The standing statue is a symbol of resistance that continues to inspire.
You can kick, but we're still fighting. And that's the message.
Well, up next, we dive into the social significance of hip-hop in the black community, and we'll look at how Sojourner Truth's legacy continues to live on in Battle Creek. Stay with us. You can journey back in time and learn about the long walk to freedom and equality. It is a story told through art you can experience at the Continual Struggle exhibit. I'll take you inside and show you how an artist captures the emotions of the civil rights movement. If you look closely, you can see the pain, horror, and determination in their eyes.
You know, they say a picture is worth 1,000 words. I believe a great piece of inspirational art is worth 1,000,000 words.
These freedom fighters carry the weight of the world. The artist who painted them carries the weight of an entire generation.
I want them to be able to see the emotion. I want them to be able to see the heartfelt sincerity that the artist put into it.
Brian Washington is behind all 23 of these black and white masterpieces. They're a part of his Continual Struggle exhibit on display at the Gerald R. Ford Presidential Museum.
Well, this wasn't an easy work. This was a long process, 13 years the artist worked. He was actually a lawyer by day and an artist by passion.
With each stroke, workers say Washington wanted to remind viewers that each person in his paintings were driven by hope, despite the challenge to be seen as equal and even human.
Brian's main goal is to have you look at your interpersonal struggles in your life and take what you see and the courage and carry it forth with your personal life and through your struggle.
While some of his work conjures a painful period in American history, Washington says it's necessary to acknowledge the past in order to shape a better future.
I really do believe that equality, tolerance, and inclusion are the issues that are going to define our time.
An exhibit at the Urban Institute for Contemporary Arts in downtown Grand Rapids. The deeply personal project translating valence, redefining black male identity. Lindsay McComo explains.
So I titled this show Translating Valence, Redefining Black Male Identity. And the basis of the show is really thinking about stereotypes of black men, which of course weren't created by black men, and then redefining those identities in their own language. And so it's this self-defined identity in a way. So there are 6 artists. Josh did the mural, and that's the only work that he has, but everyone else has at least 2 pieces. Some of them have up to 5. So this is Nate Lewis, and he's based in DC. And Nate's work is interesting because he actually was a clinical nurse for a long time before he started making this work. So this is photography, and then he manipulates the paper. He kind of treats the paper like an organism. And so he's going through and he's like dissecting this work and things like that.
What was the process like for you in selecting which artists to showcase?
All of the artists in this show I had known beforehand. I wanted to really focus on thinking about black male identity, but having a level of secrecy to it. So when you think about your own identity, you only show a certain part of yourself to the world. You know, like you don't completely expose yourself, or you're not completely vulnerable. And that's what I was thinking in terms of distorting these works. So every work in the show is distorted in some way. So with Patrick's, you know, he puts the holes in the fabric. With Nate's, he plucks the paper, or, you know, it's different things, or there's some aspects that are not clear in the photo. So I was thinking about how you can use illusion to protect yourself in a way, and you can present this identity to the world in the way that you want to be presented. So it's this real focus on self-defined identity. And so as black males, they get to decide who they are and tell the world who they are, as opposed to the world telling them who they are.
Now you can see Translating Valence at the UICA through May 3rd. Well, the story of hip hop is being explored in a new exhibit in Kalamazoo. Kyle Mitchell takes us inside.
The exhibit showcases hip-hop films that have made a big impact and are part of a broader plan to preserve the art form. The unique sounds of hip-hop surround you at this exhibit inside the Lewis Walker Institute for the Study of Race and Ethnic Relations at Western Michigan University.
I think it's absolutely amazing. I'm a hip-hop fan myself.
WMU student Jasmine Jordan is in awe of how hip-hop has grown.
I listen to a lot of French hip-hop, so to see it like go global is crazy.
The all-time top 10 hip-hop movies plus one museum exhibit and film festival is paying tribute to the ever-evolving world of hip-hop.
As the African-American culture over the years, a lot of music has started with us. I believe that, in my opinion, hip-hop is one that we have truly owned.
Shamonte Dickerson says the exhibit from curator Dr. Khalid Al-Hakim has been a hit.
People don't know what to quite expect when they actually come and view, so when they come in here, they're absolutely wowed.
Institute director Dr. Luchara Wallace says the variety of hip-hop and its reach is amazing.
Understanding the elements in the beginning of hip-hop is something that I think it transcends just one generation or just one race or gender or ethnicity.
The exhibit is part of a bigger plan to preserve hip-hop history.
Our goal is to establish Michigan's first hip-hop archive, and in doing so really starting to tell the story of Michigan hip-hop.
Organizers hope the archive will have a lasting impact for generations.
It's the preservation of culture, because if you don't have a way of preserving people's experiences, people's journeys, then you're lost.
Now folks, that exhibit runs through the end of the month. Up next, we'll take you to Sojourner Truth's final resting place and show you how her legacy lives on in Battle Creek. As we honor Black History Month in West Michigan, we are reminded of a slave who became a human rights icon. Her legacy continues today, and you've likely heard Sojourner Truth's story, but you may not know about the influences she had on West Michigan. Our Justin Collard shows us how Battle Creek honors her achievements.
Our vision is really to empower the next generation of Sojourner Truths.
When thinking about the battlegrounds of the abolitionist movement against the practice of slavery, Battle Creek, Michigan is surely not the first place to come to mind. Sojourner Truth left footprints across the U.S. and she made this place her home.
She was actually invited by a group of kind of radical Quakers that were abolitionists, Friends of Human Progress. So she was invited to speak here.
The year was 1856, and truth took root right here.
Whatever it was about Battle Creek, she decided to relocate here that next year.
She changed her name, adopted a new way of thinking, a new way to enact change.
Battle Creek was her base, so she would still travel.
An illiterate former slave traveling back and forth from Washington, D.C. in the 1860s during the height of the Civil War, even meeting President Abraham Lincoln.
When you think about that time period and who she was and her background and not having a formal education, what she was able to accomplish just by sheer determination and courage and wit, it's really phenomenal.
She was buried here at Oak Hill Cemetery in 1883. Today, at the Sojourner Truth Institute of Battle Creek, her accomplishments live on.
We recently adopted a youth social justice program, so we're really excited about what does that look like to create this next generation of change agents using Sojourner Truth as the inspiration or as a model for civic engagement.
Change, hundreds of years in the making.
Taking that on here in Battle Creek, and we're not going to limit ourselves, certainly.
Thank you so very much for joining us. From all of us here at Wood TV, I'm Donovan Long. Have a great night, West Michigan.